Hello, beautiful teachers, and welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat. This is your weekly show on YouTube where we come together as a community, we share ideas, we do a little bit of practicing ourselves together and warm things up for the week, and we also dive into one specific topic. Today's topic is predicting piano student progress. So let me know your thoughts on predicting progress. Is it something you feel you can do? Do you always overestimate how quickly your students are going to learn things and set goals that are too ambitious, even if they're not shared with students? Or do you go the other direction and they always blow you away by how far they get, how quickly they move? Let me know how you think about this whole idea of predicting progress. And later in the show, we're going to be going into some specific examples which are based on real students and what you might realistically expect from a normal piano studio, not prodigies, not people who practice every single day for their whole piano studies, right? These are regular students with variety, and we're going to go through those examples, spark some discussion. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are new to us here, hello, we're a lovely community. Please say hi in the chat. We love to hear from you, and just let us know how you're doing, where you're joining us from. We'd love to have you join in because this is a live show for a reason. So we love to hear from the community and really get that chatter going. Now, before we get into the main topic of today, we're going to do our warm-up. So let's dive into that together. Here we go with our warm-up. We start with a deep breath together. So today, I want you to reach your right arm out to the right. Stretch it all the way out. And then reach your left arm out to the left. And then bring your hands together. Do it with me. Bring your hands together at your heart, and let's breathe in together. 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let go of last week. It's Monday. We're ready for a new week, and we're going to start it off right together with some Rhythm Railroad. So our Rhythm Railroad today is number 15. We're getting up there. Can't wait till we move up to level 3, right? It's going to be a momentous occasion. For today, we're doing number 15, and we're going to practice it together. Let's do counting and try the action super slow. So it goes ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I always practice them like that with my students before doing them. Well, unless it's a student who's further ahead and I just really want to challenge them. But usually we do it like that first. Either rightly, the foot. I feel the same way. But yeah, usually I do it like this first, either counting or saying the rhythm syllables. People often ask me about that, like rhythm syllables versus counting. In my studio, it's generally rhythm syllables for the first, say, level 1 into level 2. Level 2 is the transition, where we gradually do both and then move over to more metric counting most of the time. But we still keep those rhythm syllables for any time we need them or feel they'd be easier to do. So let's give this one a go. We're going to go with the plane right away, but with a student, I would often do the boat first, the slower version first. Here's the boat. Are you ready? There's going to be 2 bars of intro, and then I want you to do the action. Yellow is hands on head, heart, foot. Okay. Lost my keyboard there. How did you do? I promise you I did the foot. It's just really hard to see. You can kind of just see me shift slightly. That little jostle, that's the foot. That's me tapping my foot. I stand up to work, so I'm standing on a rubber mat, so it's even less obvious, but I promise I'm doing them. How did that go? Are you ready for number 2? The second one for today is number 16. And we're going to give this a go. We'll do rhythm syllables this time. Let's try it together. Try the actions with me. Really give these a go. Even if you feel a little bit silly, even if your cat is watching and you're like, oh no, my cat's going to see me. Just try it. Have some silly fun with me. It's a great way to start off your week. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Ti, ti, ta, 2, 3. Ta, ta, 2, 3. Ta, 2, 3, 4. Ti, 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 ta, 2. Ti, ti, ta, ta, 2. Ti, 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 ti. As you might guess, that ending is the challenging part for most. Okay, the last bar is super fun. I agree, Ashmitha. Are we ready to give it a go? I'll probably crash and burn in the last bar, but we'll give it a try. I did pretty good there, if I do say so myself. How did you do? I have tried these before. Some of them stand out more than others. This is actually a thing that happens all the time with students, doesn't it? When there's like a bar, part of their piece that is more challenging to learn. In the moment it's harder, but then they remember it better. It's a really good example of how making learning harder often makes it more durable. I've obviously struggled with that last bar before, and so I'm doing fine with it today. Okay, we're going to do some singing next. For this one, I'm just going to do the hand signs so that you can get used to those and so that I don't distract you with the backing track and me singing on top of it. But I suggest you sing along with the solfa names or just hum and just give it a go. Here we go. Too bad, right? Just a little bit of singing to warm you up on a Monday. Here we go into the news section. All right, let me know your news. I love to hear from you. My news this week, what I've been working on, I actually just today released a new set of templates that might be useful for some of you. So I decided to put these together. I wanted to do this last year, if I'm honest. But this year, I finally got this into the schedule to put this together for you. So what it is, it's a Canva template. So if you don't use Canva and you're not interested in learning how to use it, just ignore me, okay? This is only for use within Canva. It's a Canva template, but Canva is free. So if you want to learn to use some simple design software, might be something you want to get into. The template includes a calendar, which is an academic year calendar. That's the thing we often can't find and have to make ourselves. Like you can find templates for like a 2022 calendar, but not so much for 2022 to 2023. So I always make my own. But this time I also made a Canva version for all of you if you want to use it. So it has all the dates laid out and it has a system for marking workshops or concerts. Of course, you don't have to use those. If you don't do anything like that, that's fine. You just leave the calendar, put in your teaching breaks, and I show you how to do all of that. And then there's the policies sheet, which is an example set of policies. Of course, you should adapt it to your studio, but it gives you a starting point and a format for just laying it out for parents. And then the final sheet is a pricing table for your fees. So it's 3 pages. I make these for my own studio every year around this time. And so I decided that I wanted to do this template version. So it's in the Colorful Keys store. It's just $3 if you want it. Go for it. It means you get access to the policies if you want those as a starting point. You have the calendar and you can adapt it as much as you want. But also with your download, you get a PDF that gives you the link to the template, but it also gives you a link to a tutorial video, which is about 12 minutes, where I walk you through all of the changes I might suggest you make, as well as best practices for using it. So hopefully it's useful for you. Again, it's in the Colourful Keys store, so if you are a VMT member, you have a discount. Just go to the member discounts area and you'll get a discount for the Colourful Keys store. So you don't even have to pay all $3, but it's only $3 anyway. $3, €3, whatever. It depends where you buy it. Okay, so that is what I've been doing today, basically, is getting that set up and posting about it, explaining it. So I hope some of you find that useful. I've also been working a lot the last week on YouTube video stuff, so really fun stuff coming up soon on the channel. These are non-live videos, right? Stuff that we prepare ahead of time. And we also released our new games. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the games here on the show. I decided to split that off. I used to sometimes do that in one of our weekly shows here. And if you all really, really want that, I can go back to doing it that way. But I think it's better split off so that you're not listening to me talk about that when you're here for this show. So that is separate now. That's in the members area. So if you go to the member forums, you'll see the new monthly member news where I explain the new games, talk about other new releases, and talk about what's coming up soon. And if you're not a member and you're curious about that, you can also find it on our Colourful Keys Facebook page because I recorded it there. So you can watch it if you're interested in what we have new inside Vibrant Music Teaching, especially if you're thinking about becoming a member and you want to know what's going on the inside, because I give you a look inside the membership, one section of the membership. Okay, and then, we released some new stuff too. So we have Lessons for Music Teachers from Folk Dancing was our latest article and podcast released. And this one is a little bit of a strange one. Sometimes I just let myself be an oddball on the blog to wake us all up. So this is about what did I learn from Irish dancing, my years in Irish dancing, which I did from about age 4 to 21, 22, something like that. So I did it all the way through school, basically, and college. And this is like, what did I learn from that experience? Because I traveled around, we went on several trips for cultural exchanges and stuff like that. Anyway, I detail it in the post. Bit of an unusual one, but if you feel like shaking yourself out of your current thinking, it might be one for you. And then here on the YouTube channel, I shared a little improvisation idea based on Love Actually. Now, I know Love Actually is a Christmas film, okay? I don't have that wrong. I watch it every year with a friend of mine, so I know what it is. But the main theme, I learnt it for our last Christmas concert. And I had this idea, very simply, to take that chord pattern that's in it and make it into an improv that we could use for Valentine's Day, since it's called Love Actually. Okay, so I think I'm getting away with it. Anyway, that's here on the YouTube channel if you're curious about that. And then next week here on the live show, we're going to be going through games to teach rhythm and beat. Simple, basic concept, but one that we always need new ideas for. So I'm excited to talk to you about that as well. Ashmantha, is it the Major Monster one in particular, or is it just in general? I'd love to know which one you're most excited about. I'm pretty excited about Major Monster, although I'm most excited still at the moment about all the scale releases we're doing, because I just think they make such a difference when you use them. In my studio anyway, they've just, oh my gosh, transformed the way we're working on scales and made it so wonderful to do. So I hope they're doing that for you too. I have one other piece of news which isn't quite news yet. This is a preview, but many of you will know these kinds of things. Look, there's even one that I've given to a student on this sheet. Anyway, many of you will know them if I got them the right way up. Those are the stickers that I put on students' folders when they complete challenges. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can go to the blog and look up challenge board and you'll see the details of what I'm talking about with our whole system. Basically, it's a way to incentivize students and to make it more step by step to work on all the things that we need outside of just like method books. So sight reading, chords, scales. The 60-second challenge I just showed you, that's a note naming challenge, right? And then we have interval naming, all these different challenges, rhythms, which are based on the Rhythm Railroad in my series, in my studio. All of these are completely adaptable to each teacher's studio. We just give a framework and then you say, well, actually, I don't use that resource, so you substitute with something else or just leave that challenge out. Thank you, Angie. So we have all these stickers and we just recently redid all the designs, or I should say because this is just my baby. I recently redid all the designs to bring everything in line and I'm way happier with them. I just think they're beautiful now. Let's have a purple one. Transposing is purple now. So yeah. And I reprinted stickers. I'm still using the old ones, but I'm using them up and then I'm starting on the new ones in my studio. And when I redid them, I got extra printed because we're going to put these in the Colourful Keys store. Now, if you're a member, you already have access to these. You can get them printed locally. But I know many members have told me like, oh my gosh, this seems like such a faff. I don't know how to upload the file. The printer tells me I need XYZ and I don't know what that is. I try to make it as simple as possible, but I know some of you are just like, no, this is too much. I can't do it. I don't want to. So you will now, you can't yet. This is why it's a, excuse me, coming soon kind of thing. I'm going to be getting these up into the Colourful Keys store as well, so that you can buy hard copies of the sticker sheets. The reason it's taking me a little while to set up is because there's all the different options and I want to give you the choice where you can pick whichever ones you want and we'll ship you just those ones. And you can, obviously add multiple different ones. Yeah. So that, I hope some of you are excited about that if you have wanted to do the challenge system. Let's see what else we have here. I didn't take all of them. Let's have Mr. Chord Master. Chord Zen Master, as it's now called. So yeah, we're going to make the hard copies available. As I said, you can totally get them. You can totally get them. So Angie, I'm so glad that the instructions worked for you and it was all fine. But you'd still prefer to order hard copies. I get it. For some, it's just more convenience. Convenient. I keep changing word forms today. Okay, Angie, that is on the challenge overview. We left it off when we created the new document, so that was an oversight. So do download the challenge overview sheet, which is on the challenge page. But to give you an idea, in my studio, the Technique Wizard means they have mastered all the Piano Safari animal exercises. So they can perform each one of those, they don't get them mixed up, and they do it without tension and in the right way. In your studio, it could be anything, of course, as with all of these, but that's what it is for us. Alrighty, so that's coming soon. I hope you're excited about the new template as well. And again, those are at the Colourful Keys store. So that's colourfulkeys.ie/shop. Let's just very quickly type that into the comments. And we will get into our main topic of today. Here we go. All right, so we're talking today about predicting piano student progress. And what I want to give you is 5 different examples that are based on, loosely, real students from my studio. Obviously, none of these are real students that I actually have. I'm going to be showing you stock images to just give us a frame of reference, and they're not exactly any particular student in my studio, but they are based on them, so they are realistic. They are not polished versions, like I haven't cherry-picked the best possible situation. I'm trying to give you a range. And I would love to hear from you about your struggles with predicting piano student progress, and or whether these seem realistic to you, whether this is how you see things and you can resonate with these stories and see them in your own students in your studio. So my first student is Layla. This is little Layla for the purposes of this show, and Layla is now 8 years old. But she's been studying since she was 5, so she's been studying for 4 years. Almost 4 years. Layla is a steady practicer with normal ups and downs. So reasonably steady, but not perfect. And last year, during our various lockdowns, last year and a half, Layla has kind of struggled with practice. So those have definitely been dips, and they've been more prolonged than any dips that she had before that. So we got 4 years of study, but some definite dips, some definite valleys in practice levels, and some peaks which are not extreme. They're just like standard practicing. Let's say maybe 45 minutes to 60 minutes a week on average, something like that, right? So we're not talking about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week here, but we are talking about steady, reasonable practice. Now, Layla is currently in Piano Safari 3, Unit 2, and she's also studying from a book called Dynamic Duos, which is a duet book from pianopronto.com. So that gives you a frame of reference if you know Piano Safari. If you don't, just think of a level 3 of a method book that you know. So would you expect Layla to be up to there or be further ahead? I should say Piano Safari progresses a little bit further by level 3, so we might be talking about level 4, say, of Piano Adventures, after 4 years. Or if you're used to exam systems, this would be like a grade 1-ish level. Where would you expect Layla to be up to in the method book that you use? After 4 years with reasonably steady progress, but no huge amounts of progress, and some dips where there was really nothing happening at home. Layla is reading pretty well. She's still mixing up fifths and sixths a little bit because we're just at that beginning stage of Piano Safari level 3. And she does find the technique very challenging, much more so than any other area, because Layla just has those naturally slender fingers, and so they collapse and they introduce tension to the rest of their body. So all the way through her 4 years, we've been working on that, and we're still working on it. Even though it's getting better, when she plays legato, sometimes she still plays with a lot of tension. So we're continuing to work on that and to build up that finger strength. Layla, however, loves improv, and her parents are really into that side of what we do here because her dad is a musician, a guitarist and an improviser, not a reader at all. So he loves that we do that alongside the reading. He thinks it's the best of both worlds, and he definitely encourages that at home. So Layla is very happy to improvise in any key you give her. She's very happy to play the blues with you and all of that good stuff. She has completed the 60-second bronze and the minterval silver, so she's further ahead on intervals than on note names, but she's well on her way to completing the gold level of the interval challenge and the silver level of the note name challenge. And she's also working her way towards the scale challenge. She knows about 10 scales at this stage, so we've got a few left to go. And then we'll be working on really solidifying the full circle of fifths and achieving the scale apprentice level. So that is Layla. Let me know if you recognize Layla from your studio or if there were any surprises in there for you. Next up is Victram. Victram is a little bit older than Layla. Victram is 9 years old, and he's only been studying for 2.5 years. So a little bit older, but studying less long. Victram started with really steady progress initially. However, this dipped off during the pandemic. Are you noticing a trend? And really didn't exist last year. There were a few weeks maybe where he did something, but in general, last year was a almost no practice year. However, this year, practice has really picked up again. Now that things are a little bit more normal from even the end of last year on, so like May on, he started to practice a lot more consistently. And now I'd say it's about 30 to 60 minutes per week. That's a wide range. But yeah, some weeks are still, I'm not sure that more than 2 days are happening. And some days it might be well over 60 minutes in the week because he gets really enthusiastic about something. But it's feeling a lot more steady in terms of progress this year, and that's great to see. Victram, because of the low practice levels and a lot of issues with online lessons when we were doing those, just in terms of the particular setup they had at home, Victram moved much more slowly through Piano Safari level 1, and it took us a long time to get to level 2. So he's just now hitting Unit 2 of Piano Safari 2, which means that it took almost 2 years, over 18 months anyway, to get through level 1. That's not actually that unusual. Now, I would more tend to see that with younger students, say the 5-year-olds who begin. It's quite usual for that to take a year and a half to get through Piano Safari level 1. Bear in mind that we're not only doing that, we're doing lots of other things outside the method book. I'm just giving you that as a frame of reference. So, for Victram, I was worried about the transition to level 2 because level 1 really was slow, especially in the last unit. But because we solidified all those skills and we did take our time and we didn't rush it when he wasn't practicing, and because he now is practicing, we're flying through level 2. So he's doing better than it sounds like he is based on that level after this long. Victram is an excellent reader with the intervals we're using so far and takes on any new interval with just real ease. I mean, it's no problem to him whatsoever. Rote pieces are a little bit tougher, but they have come a long way in terms of his oral memory and him working on these pieces at home. He is reluctant to improvise, but this has gotten a lot better as well. I think he had a lot of ideas about getting things right that I'm gradually working away at. So I see that as a huge measure of our progress, is that he's not as worried about playing things correct anymore. He is happy to jump in and improvise and dive into new things in general, much more so. So far, Victram has learned 4 major scales because of the issues with level 1, we didn't maybe cover technique as much, and I wasn't happy with the legato. He's just recently, in the last month and a half maybe, started to work on scales, and so we've gotten 4 done already because he loves patterns. So once we get into them, I think they're going to be absolutely so fun for him to work on. And he pretty much has most of the grade 1 theory concepts covered, which means, for those of you familiar with my Thinking Theory series, that he would be pretty comfortable working through most of that. He hasn't done the full book yet, but he would be able to do a lot of it independently because he definitely has a mind for that, a maths-focused brain, and really picks up on stuff like that quite easily. So that is Victram. Now we're moving on to Poppy. Hi, Poppy! So Poppy is 11 years old and she's been learning for 6 years. So Poppy started at age 5. Poppy has good practice. Really good practice. Now, nothing extreme, and most of my students, as most of your students, are busy, right? She has a lot of other things on. However, she has always been very self-motivated and makes time to practice regularly. It's a rare week when she hasn't gotten to everything that she intended to get to. And it shows in her progress. I'm not talking about extremes here. I would estimate maybe she does 2 hours a week, most weeks. Maybe a little bit more. I don't think she would ever count her practice time, so she wouldn't be able to tell me, but she does practice pretty steadily, and I would gauge based on her progress about that much. That difference, though, between Poppy versus, say, Victram, or even from our first student, Layla, who's practicing about half as much and with some dips where Poppy has none. She has practiced pretty much consistently the entire way through those 6 years. The difference in progress is astounding, and we know that, but this is hard to drive home to parents. Do you think so too? It's hard to show this difference. 6 years in, yes, a little bit longer in than, say, our first student. But the difference in practice is the real difference here. So Poppy blows everyone away at pretty much every recital, if I'm honest. Poppy is studying right now for her grade 5 exam. Now, if you're not familiar with exam systems, but you are familiar with, say, Jane McGrath levels, that's pretty steady with level 5 to 6 of Jane McGrath. Or if you're not familiar with either of those, we're talking about a solid intermediate level, verging on late intermediate. So Poppy's flying, but it's only through that consistent practice. That's the only reason, really. And she's doing that. Now, if she has a natural gift, to me, it's that she was motivated and happy to practice all the way through. This is not through pure parental support. This is partially through Poppy's own drive, because she loves doing well. She loves making progress at the piano, and after the initial stages, she has kept up the practice herself. She makes the time. And that's a rare 11-year-old who can do that. Poppy is excellent at reading. She has pretty good rhythm. That's been a bit more of a struggle, but it's gotten a lot better. She has great technique. And I'm working with her on steadier practice. Skills. Not habits, skills. Because Poppy's one issue, really, is that she flies ahead with stuff. She wants to play everything super fast. And she wants to do it yesterday. So while she does practice, sometimes a lot of that practice will be wasted because she's gone so fast that there's poor fingering, there's not good technique, and it's not to the extreme, okay? If you're imagining one of your students who really frustrates you with this, no, she will listen to it, she will fix it. She overall has good practice habits. This is her one little foible that does get in the way of her going even faster, literally, with her pieces. Because the fingering isn't there. She's also a little bit less solid on scales, but she definitely knows all 12 major scales, and she does know the minor scales, but just not as consistently is able to perform them. Next up we have Derek. So we've got 2 examples to go. Let me know if you're enjoying these and any examples of your own students or outliers that you feel haven't progressed the way you were expecting. So Derek then is 12 years old, so very similar in age to Poppy that we just saw. But Derek has only been learning 2.5 years. So this is the difference between starting at age 9 going on 10 versus starting at age 5. It is worlds away in terms of where they end up at this really important age where they're going to transition from primary school to secondary school, and there is a danger of them quitting. So Derek hasn't quit, which is wonderful. He is 2.5 years in, and he has had some decent weeks of practice, but generally steadily low levels. So we're talking like 3 to 4 days a week versus 5 to 6, pretty consistently since he started. Generally no practice over breaks or anything like that. And one break isn't going to matter. 1 week isn't going to matter, but this all does add up. And then the last year, Derek has moved up to secondary school. So understandably, practice has been very little. And that's such a trend. I mean, it's very rare that I have a student who moves from primary to secondary and can keep their practice habits up. It's just tough. The homework increases, the school hours increase, the pressures increase, and they need a year to get to grips with it. So I very much take the approach that, hey, if you get a bit done, that's awesome, but let's focus on having fun in the lesson because I know I need to ride that wave. However, Derek hasn't necessarily put in the time before we got here. So Derek is near the end of Piano Safari 2, which isn't bad for 2.5 years. Derek definitely has a lot more natural aptitude than he realizes. And that does make up for some of the the lack of progress, the lack of practice rather, does help him to still be progressing reasonably well. He has a good grasp of concepts. He always gets things quite quickly. But my main focus with Derek actually is grit, because he's easily dissuaded from things that seem even slightly hard. And that's made so much harder when there's less practice happening, because everything does feel a little bit hard. Even if I structure it in a certain way to try and alleviate that, we're still going to have to address things in the lesson that he can't get ahead of at home, that he can't work on at home because he just doesn't have the time and doesn't have the mental bandwidth because of that transitional age. So this is the tough thing at the moment, and all of my measures of Derek's progress really at the moment are about grit, not so much about pushing forward in the method books. However, Derek does already know all, 10 major scales, knows about different chords, and is doing very well in pretty much every area except that getting discouraged thing, which is worrying me because of the phase of life that he's in. Final example then is Ray. Ray is 14 years old now, and she has been learning for 7 years. So this is the longest student and the oldest in my example set. Ray has had up and down levels of practice. In the first few years, it was pretty consistent, not enormous, but pretty consistent, pretty steady, with some off weeks. And then it started to dip a little bit, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, and you've had students who do that. It dipped down a little bit, and then it dipped up again, and then it dipped down again. Last year was Ray's first year in secondary school. So this year is what we call second year, which is the second year of high school, secondary school. My gosh, that's a lot of seconds. But anyway, Ray's transition year from that to that, from primary to secondary, which is from elementary to high school, was last year, and there was no practice, almost none. And she decided to do an exam, or we had already decided before the practice disappeared. So that's put in my mind that maybe we never do exams in first year. I'm not sure if that's going to be in my new rule. But anyway, we did ride that wave, and now Ray is practicing again and progressing very well. So although we have peaks and valleys, we have huge enthusiasm and natural musicality, and Ray is also a singer, and she loves playing with chords and patterns and all that good stuff. She also has a great aptitude for theory, just from having done it diligently really well. She always was happy to do written work, and so that really has helped to solidify these skills. That means that she doesn't fall back so far when we have those practice dips. It's more about technique and actual coordination that we lack at that stage. My biggest concern for Ray actually at the moment is a little habit of pausing in frustration that is pretty common with teenagers, but I want to see if I can do something about this, because it's really the biggest thing holding her back, is that she'll try something, not get it, and have a moment of going, oh, and then try it again. And while that's fair enough to a certain degree, it does waste a lot of time. Has anybody noticed this? Just scowling at something every time you get it wrong. I'm not sure how I'm going to alleviate it, but I do want to work on it because it's wasting her practice time, and she just still doesn't have extreme amounts of practice time to spend. So that's Ray. That is all my examples of students. Hopefully it gave you some idea of whether your students are normal, what ways we can measure progress, what ways we can think about it, and what we can expect for students of certain ages and certain practice levels. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. I see a few coming in. Let me see. Ashmitha, start of this year, I started a 12-week practice challenge with my students. Result of this was to get to be habit formation, which I felt like during the pandemic had affected some students for sure, right? It's been tough to keep that habit going. But the students that do keep the habit going, like my example of Poppy, it makes such a difference. And so many will look, this is why I get so frustrated about that word talent, because so many will look at her in a recital and say, oh my gosh, she's so talented. As if like she was just born that way, as if that just happened. No, she practiced diligently, not enormous amounts, but more than most, for 6 years. And that's where you get to. It really is that simple. Right, Julie? So true. Karen, yeah. What can we do about it, eh? I'm not sure. It seems like I can't exactly ban her from going, because she does try it again. She has no problem with that. But it's wasting time. And it's setting this sort of negative tone. That's the only other thing I don't like about it. Anyway, let me know if that was useful. Let me know your piano students' progress and what you expect from them and whether you're shocked by my students' levels of practice. I have a hunch that this is pretty normal. And even if you think your students practice more or should practice more, it's probably not the norm anymore, is it? Or was it ever? Was it when you were growing up? I know I didn't practice 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for my whole piano student journey at all. But I know some of you did. So definitely different trends and different strokes for different folks. All right, we're going to go into our little book club and then we'll have Ask Me Anything. So if you do have a question, just type the word question followed by your question and I'll come back to all of those in just a moment after we talk about our book. So our book this time, I did remember to bring my Kobo with me. So this is our book. It's Teaching Piano to Students with Special Needs. And this week we're reading chapter 2. I'm finding this book really interesting so far in her approach to talking about this and just relaying her experiences. I thought all the stuff about music in schools and the role of music therapy is great. I loved her little anecdote about trying to create her own major, and her advisor was like, that's music therapy. She was like, oh, which I love. But if you did that in in a college in Ireland, they would really think you were creating a new degree. I mean, there's very little music therapy in this country. I think we have one program. So I'm not surprised she didn't know about it, but it was funny. I did find it interesting. She explained her use of terms in the chapter, which I totally understood and appreciated. She wanted to get out of the way that she prefers to say special needs, and I'm not sure when this was written, so I'm not sure even if, that term is going by the wayside. Not to get too caught up in the terms, but I did think it was interesting that she was pointing out that she wouldn't choose to use the word disability, that it was old-fashioned. I certainly agree that the word handicapped is totally old-fashioned. However, with the word disability, I get what she's saying, and I think she's probably right for most of her students because she's not necessarily talking about physical disabilities. But I know from my mother, who works in disability services, that many disabled people prefer to be called disabled people, physically disabled people, because they say we are disabled. We have been disabled by society. So I just wanted to add that little nuance in there that, yes, when we're talking about learning difficulties, we probably don't want to use the term disability anymore. Depends on where you live, depends on the norms. However, disabled people are trying to reclaim that term, at least here, and I think in a lot of the world, because they feel it's kind of the opposite of person first language, and it's not against the idea of person first, meaning you say a person with ADHD, not an ADHD person. And I get that, and I think that's still valid. However, as I explained, disabled people are disabled. They have been disabled by society. It's not saying that they are defective. It's saying you are disabling us. So anyway, that's just a little side tangent, I guess. But I thought it was really interesting about music in schools, as I said, and just her thoughts on Suzuki and its application for teachers of students with special needs. Because the whole time I was reading it, I was actually thinking, yeah, but so does Kadai, so does Dalcroze. And then she got to that at the end, so I didn't even have that to nitpick with at all. We encourage you to develop an inclusive philosophy as part of your overall philosophy of music education. Made me think about how I can expand my expectations of learning styles of all students. I love that, Angie. That's a really interesting takeaway from it, for sure. So let me know if you're reading. If you haven't been reading, it's a short read, this one, so you can definitely catch up with us. We've just done chapter 2. We're reading chapter 3 for next week. And it's available on Kindle and Kobo and all the ebook places, I think. Right, that's our book. Let's dive into the questions. Now, before anyone gets mad at me, I did forget the Snap camera this week. So let me just, in fact, fix that because I still had it set to snap. I didn't realize that would affect it badly. Yeah, I forgot to set up the snap camera, so we will do it again next week if you're up for a laugh. I just totally forgot about that part today. But questions are welcome in the chat. I'll stay for a few more minutes to answer any that have come up so far. Oh, Teresa, great question. So my example students, yes, generally they would all be in either 45-minute solo lessons for most of their studies or 60-minute buddy lessons, which is the overlapping lesson format. The only exception there would be Poppy, fake student Poppy, who has recently moved up to 60-minute solo lessons, and that's just because she just loves having even more to work on during the week. So that was to be expected. But yes, generally we're talking about at least 45 minutes. How do teachers explain to students that the difference in playing abilities as a result of time with the instrument without the guilt? Really interesting point, Angie. I don't try to explain that to students most of the time. What I really want to get that across to is parents, because they're the ones who make these comments at recitals that frustrate me if they're not supporting their child to practice at home. Now, I know parenting is hard, there's a lot going on. They can't always practice consistently all of the time, but they do have a very important role to play. And actually, I was thinking about this recently with our book as well. This is a bit of a side point, but with our book that we're reading about teaching piano to students with special needs, I've been thinking about my own students with learning differences and realizing that their progress is steady with all other students. Yes, I have to sometimes employ different teaching strategies, and some things might be harder than others. And I'm not saying there's no difference. But what actually holds back their progress is that they don't practice as much. The students in my studio, on average, the students who have learning differences, ADHD, dyslexia, anything else, they don't practice as much. And this isn't because, oh no, like, how dare they? My point is that they don't practice as much because school is so much harder for them and their homework is so much harder for them that they have less time. And also home life is more difficult. There's a lot more for their parents to manage. So I get why they don't practice as much. But I don't know, maybe it's a total duh, but I realized this the other day, like they're progressing slower. But actually it's a lack of practice. Once again. Because when they do practice, on the weeks that the practice happens, the progress is pretty much what I would expect from any other student. Again, with me employing some extra strategies and different things. And of course, we're talking about milder learning difficulties here. If we're talking about, say, our students with Down syndrome, or stronger, more severe forms of ASD or anything more severe, then yes, progress will be slower, and that is because of difficulties with learning. But for most of the milder cases, the students who are in mainstream schools and things like that, it's practice. And it is harder for them to practice. So how can we help that? I'm not sure I can, but something to be aware of, I think. Okay, doesn't look like I have any more questions to answer. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you will consider getting a ticket to our Teacher Turbo Boost conference, because if you enjoyed this chat, you will love that conference. It's 5 days with me and loads of special guests, and you can find out more at teacherturboboost.com. I hope you'll sign up. Let me know if you have any questions about it, of course. And until next week, bye for now.